couple of questions that I'd like to address. The first one is, what is methylation?
Luke, you want this one?
Yeah. Methylation is, if you look at it this way, it's a pathway through the liver. It's part of our detoxification pathway. So there's a couple main highways through the liver, and methylation just happens to be one of the roads. So methylation is part of our detoxification capability, and we all need to have methylation. And when we don't, we can get an increase in our homocysteine. That's how we check it. People that have methylation error or poor methylation can suffer cardiovascular events, i.e. stroke and heart attacks. And people that also have an elevation of homocysteine can have neurological compromise as well. So when we look at this maybe from like a stroke, heart attack, depression, anxiety, those types of events, they can be bad at methylation. So just look at it this way. It's a detoxification pathway or road through the liver, one of about 4 or 5 main roads.
Okay, great. So we've got a couple of more questions. What dose of vitamin A and fish oil should someone be taking?
I'll take the fish oil. You take the A. Got it? Luke?
My answer for vitamin A, it's not like a vitamin D where we directly measure vitamin D. We do directly measure vitamin D. We don't directly measure vitamin A. So that's kind of a tough answer or tough question to answer. So I can't get a specific answer for you. Marco's answer is probably going to be a little bit more specific. There's some nice research that shows there's some really good levels of vitamin or of fish oil to take. But I would probably venture out and say anywhere from 5 to 10,000 international units or IUs of vitamin A would be sufficient.
Thank you. And as far as omega-3, like I mentioned earlier, omega-3 is an anti-inflammatory. It's natural to the body. So you're not going to have those crazy side effects from a drug. But what we tend to recommend, the normal dosage, say a cardiologist or somebody in the traditional medical world may offer, is they may say to take 900 milligrams of omega-3. That'll prevent heart disease and some of that stuff. But that's a little bit on the lower end. It's really, that would be sufficient if you had a perfect diet and a perfect lifestyle. Unfortunately, the All-American diet is very, very high in what's called omega-6, which is the exact opposite of omega-3. So that's your vegetable oils, that's your processed foods, that's all the type of foods that most Americans are eating. So unfortunately, that's going to throw an imbalance in the omega-6 to omega-3 ratio. So you're going to need more omega-3 to balance that out. So our recommendations are more higher towards the, I like to recommend 3,000 milligrams of omega-3, where it's broken down into 2 components. There's what's called DHA and EPA. So you want to make sure that there's a certain ratio of EPA to DHA. So your EPA, you want to have 2 times the amount of DHA. So we like to say 2,000 milligrams of EPA for every 1,000 DHA. That will get you your 3,000 milligrams of omega-3. If you get on something in that range, you're going to really start to destroy these inflammatory processes and see a lot of great changes in your body. So in a long answer, but now a short answer, I would recommend 3,000 milligrams or around that range, breaking that down into 2,000 of EPA and 1,000 of DHA.
Yeah, they've done a research study, and they showed that 2.7 grams of fish oil for 30 straight days, not taking days off, but 30 straight days at 2.7 grams becomes the anti-inflammatory dose. So right along the lines with what Dr. Marco just said there, and there's research to back that number up as well.
So 2.7 grams is about
2,700 milligrams.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, so right there,
to clarify that.
Right.
Excellent. So, is there another question out there, Robert?
Yes, there is. Someone is writing, and they said they have both gut and reproductive issues. What might this suggest? They have both gut and reproductive issues.
Do you want to take the reproductive, and I'll take the gut?
Go for it. You want me to go first?
Yeah, go with the reproductive.
All right, yeah. So, I don't know the age of this person, commenting on this, but, I'm guessing that they're probably, 20s, 30s, maybe late 30s. But, from a reproductive standpoint, the biggest thing we'll see with girls or ladies that are unable to conceive is going to be the whole polycystic ovarian syndrome, or PCOS. And we'll see this with an elevation of testosterone in females. And a lot of times, if you have an elevation of testosterone and you're a female, kind of what you're going to experience is that your cycle is going to be very erratic. You're not going to have that 28 to 30 day type of consistency. One month you may have 20 days, the next month it might be 35, the next month it might be 30, and then 40. So you're going to have this vacillation of days. That's a good indicator to see. You could have imaging. You could have cysts on your ovaries. There could be multiple cysts called polycystic ovarian syndrome. So, whenever somebody comes in and they have reproductive issues, I immediately think, is there a process that's taking the estrogen, converting it into testosterone? We talked a little bit about that whole process. Can be evaluated via your thyroid panel. Progesterone comes into play as well. Without doing much of some additional testing, we really don't know the whole source of the reproductive issue. I've seen some amazing things with leading an anti-inflammatory life, modified diets, gluten-free, dairy-free, and sometimes patients will be able to conceive then. So it's kind of a loaded question, but my best answer would be to evaluate the whole testosterone impact, polycystic ovarian component, cyst on imaging, loss of cycle, or an alternating length of cycle type of component in there as well.
Excellent. And as far as we talked a lot about it earlier, with GI function or your gut function, there's a lot of interconnections between gut function and the brain, and gut function and thyroid symptoms and thyroid dysfunction. So, I mean, that's a pure component, a lot of our lifestyle and what we're putting in our body. So, if you have a GI component, you most likely, if we looked and dug into your blood panel, you're going to start to show maybe some of that leaky gut that Dr. Luke was talking about because of the inflammation in the stomach. So if you have inflammation in the stomach, you're going to start to break down the stomach wall and start to have that impermeability, where now you're going to have these foreign substances going from your stomach into your bloodstream, and now the autoimmune process is going to start to begin. A lot of that could be due to food sensitivities. A lot of that could be due to infections or viruses. A big factor that could be a part of that is H. pylori infection. You want to look in to see if you have an infection like that, because that could cause inflammation. So any changes in your gut function could have a circular effect on your brain and other hormonal and thyroid type symptoms. So GI function is very important to look at, and a good way to look into that is look at your albumin and globulin and that type of panel. That's going to give us an insight on whether you're showing some of that leaky gut or gut impermeability. So that's another component you want to definitely look into, and that's why this is a huge web. Like, that's why we want to get to the source, because there's so many different avenues that could cause thyroid symptoms, that it's not just the thyroid itself. Even though that is the symptom that they're calling it, there could be another component that's driving that force. And you got to look at the gut, you got to look at the brain, you got to look at the conversion factor. I mean, you got to look at everything, and that's really where you're going to see the results that you want to see. So,
yeah, I think the connection here, I definitely think the gut is impacting reproductive capability. And I think it'd be interesting on this viewer's part to evaluate and figure out why they're having gastrointestinal symptoms, and I think it would really increase the chances and capability of reproduction.
And also, just as a point of clarification, there was a little bit of follow-up here. She's 34 years old, and she said there is a loss of cycle has occurred.
Right.
As part of those symptoms.